How's it going, everybody? Bryan, Alvarez, and Lance Storm here. Figure 4 Daily, November 16, 2018. Figure4online.com/wrestlingobserver.com. We have much to talk about here today, and before we get into anything else, Lance, I got a huge list of topics. As I think everybody is well aware, our number one topic is Becky and Nia and what happened on Monday. Everyone's been talking about it. It's your chance to weigh in.
All right, so should we talk about the angle first and then get into the potato second?
Let's do the potato first. I could care less about the angle.
Well, you're supposed to care about the angle, but yeah, that is the big talk. Obviously, very, very unfortunate. And it's funny's not the right word, but on Tuesday morning in class, and everyone was talking about oh wow, Becky was bloodied up, and I actually said it's like, I really hope she doesn't have a concussion because, you used to just super glue yourself back together and keep working. I'm like, if she got hit hard enough, it's like, this match is off. It's like, there's no messing around anymore. And concussions, you can't mess with. So potatoes at this level are, shall I say, inexcusable. Obviously, accidents can happen, but this is a big deal that, derails the best angle on the pay-per-view. And first it was, I wonder what happens, and then it was the errant elbow, and then got about 2 or 3 different video footage, and it's like, no, she turned around, she looked at her, and hauled off and punched her right in the eyeball extremely hard. And I don't know what to say. It's, in my opinion, it's inexcusable because it didn't even look like there was an attempt to pull it. And that's where I have a slightly different take in that it's something I've been complaining about for a long time, and it's not about Nia. It's about, I don't know if it's WWE or whether it's a trend in the business, but there are a lot of people now, and it's on the indie scene too, that rely on throwing really fast near misses. And it's one of the reasons why I assume WWE does 10,000 camera cuts. And it really started when they brought the Shield up, that they wanted this vicious attack where it looked like no one was being careful, they were being mugged. And I was of the impression that much of the beatdown stomps and punches and kicks were really fast, really aggressive, but missed by a fair bit. And they counted on the shaky camera and the camera cuts, so you couldn't tell whether shit was connecting or not. And I've been outspoken against this for a long time, because when you throw things very quickly and very hard without actually thinking about the target first, because you're not planning on hitting anyone, eventually that area you thought you would hit will be someone's face. And I think that's what happened on Monday night. Nia spun around and threw an aggressive, because I know, at least when I was there, and ever since that I can tell, they're on about being aggressive. You got to be aggressive. And she probably spun around and figured she's just going to throw this really hard, fast punch near Becky's face. And unfortunately hit her right in the face. And, you and I have talked about it before, and we've cleared up the misnomer of the hit people in safe places very hard. It's like, no, aim at safe places, so when you screw up and an accident happens and you hit them really hard, they're still okay. And that's where, at no point should your fist be directly in front of their eyeball, because if an accident happens, they get concussed. And, imagine if she got a broken orbital bone. This could have been even worse. And if she'd
been out for months.
She still might be. That's the thing with concussions. She could be cleared tomorrow. She could be cleared in 2019. You never know with a concussion. But that's the whole point of picking safe places, having your target, and throwing straight strikes so they hit that target. And if you do it perfectly, you barely touch that target. And if you screw up, it's a stiff shot in a safe place that they can go, oh, hey, dude, you caught me on that one. And unfortunately, this one was a rather vicious right hand that I can't imagine felt well.
Well, I've ranted for days about this, so I'm sure nobody cares about my further thoughts on it. I've made it very clear. what I think should happen. I think that if you have a track record, and I agree that, accidents do happen, but if you have a track record, and clearly she has a track record, and Sheamus had a track record for years, and there are others as well, if you're regularly hurting people, I don't understand why I'm such a bad guy for suggesting that maybe it's time to spend some more time in developmental. I even suggested today on Observer Live, you can still have her work on Raw. You can still have her up for the Kids' Choice Awards. She just goes from Raw back to Florida. She works a couple house shows on the NXT loop. She trains at the Performance Center. She flies back for Raw on Monday. I don't know what's wrong with that.
Yeah, and this is where, too, because obviously she deserves some of the blame here, and probably an awful lot of it. But to me, that's where, too, the agents, the trainers, the owners, the bookers, there's a philosophy, too, that only let people do what they're good at. And work on strikes other than head strikes if your strikes aren't very good. And that's something that I really harp on and teach. It's like, I didn't throw super kicks at people's face until I was really, really good at throwing kicks. And I'm not going to punch someone in the face until I'm really good at throwing punches. And when you're in a melee with all of these people, you have to be even careful. And that's where I think some coaching, even if whether it be in developmental or whether it be on the main roster still, is important. And if you have someone who isn't as skilled, don't put them in the environment where there is a lot of bodies. It's like those battle royals when you've got the big green guy that's not very good. You avoid them like the plague. And it may be just better to book her more carefully. And again, if they decide they want to send her down to developmental, great. If they want to just spend some time working on the few things that she's not doing well, great. That's not for me to decide, but when there's a track record of hurting people, it's bad. And that's something, too, that I really harp on students with. It's like, if I went out and had a match tomorrow and tagged somebody really badly, I've got 28 years now of the rep of being super, super safe and light. It's like they'll be, well, wow, that was rare. That was a real accident. But if you've only got a year in the business or one, and you're got a track record of not being the safest person on the planet, everyone's going to get criticized even more.
Well, on that note, we actually had the angle, which was Becky Lynch coming out, distracting the Raw girls. All the SmackDown girls hit the ring. We have a wild schmaz, insanities going on. We have Nia punching Becky in the face. We've got Lana not punching Dana Brooke in the face. I don't know if you saw that animated GIF. Went from one extreme to another. Thoughts on the angle itself?
I got to tell you, if you're going to screw up and look bad, I'd rather be the one where Lana didn't hit you.
Yes, everyone's making fun of Lana, but you know what? She didn't touch anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody got hurt, and it was a momentary pause. And to be honest, is there anyone in wrestling that's been around long enough that didn't do I'm expecting them to hit me, and I didn't really wind up, and then they didn't, and you look like, oh shit, I should have hit them? That's not a big... But the one thing you did miss, though, that I think is really important is the segment backstage before this as the angle. When Becky had the disarmor on Ronda in the locker room, I think there's a really important part to this, in that they didn't show Becky jump Ronda. They only showed Becky with the armbar on. And to me, that was really important, because if you're a Becky supporter, you're just going to, yeah, Becky's kicking her ass. But if you're a Ronda supporter, you'll assume she jumped her. Where if they showed the jumper from behind, those who think Becky's a babyface and want to support Becky because she's awesome can still go, she got the better of Ronda, she had her in the disarmor. And I think that's important with the brand versus brand, especially because they seem to have turned Becky babyface now. Now, the crowd's with her anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I thought that was really important. And if it weren't for the concussion and the ungodly black eye, the blood was actually good. Like Becky being bloody and having blood on her hands and blood down her nose, and she played it so well. Like, it took her a minute to get her bearings back, but once she did, the attitude that she showed with the blood on her face and her hands, and it was just, she could not have come off more badass, which is where the concussion is a real shame, because I honestly think at the end of Monday when they closed Raw, I thought Becky was the hottest talent in all of WWE.
Well, she sure was. I mean, who else is there?
Or anyone. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nobody even, I mean, Braun Strowman's not that over, and Roman Reigns is gone. I mean, he was over in a different way. But, I mean, there's nobody that is as big as Becky is right now.
No, and that's the real question. It's like, can they maintain this? And the real hard part for WWE, unless she's already been cleared, which I don't suspect, is when it's a concussion. You don't have she broke a bone at 6 to 8 weeks. You've got to keep her hot, but you don't know how long you have to do it with smoke and mirrors. Because, again, she could be cleared in 4 days. She could be cleared in 40 days. She could be cleared in 8 months. Like, you never know with a concussion. So, obviously, everyone's hoping it's soon. I don't know her concussion history to know how many she's had, but I really hope they can keep this momentum because she's on fire. And I didn't like the follow-up on SmackDown per se, but we'll see where it goes and how long she has to be out. But it's such a shame because that angle on Monday was one of the best things I've seen in a long, long time.
Well, hey, Monday was all about heat. We had heat up and down this show. Followed it up on SmackDown, more heat. Daniel Bryan turning heel, although I think that was the best for him. And we'll find out if at Survivor Series on Sunday, all those baby faces get theirs. They get their big win.
Well, some of them aren't on the show, so they won't be getting their win back. But you're right. Raw was, we talked about it last week. It was all heat again. And that's where I'm curious. When they booked the SmackDown invasion, was that in their minds a heat angle?
I was wondering that same thing.
Ronda got jumped from behind and injured. The SmackDown women get laid out, and these evil invaders on our home turf got heat on. Like, was it supposed to be a heat angle?
Well, I think that in some ways it was supposed to be a heat angle because, like, Raw's the A show and these SmackDown people are invading. But, I mean, they had to know. And when I say they had to know, I'm giving them a lot of credit. But I think they would have to know. They would have to know that anytime there's an invasion angle, like, people go crazy for it, and they go crazy for the invaders, right? Does that ever not happen?
No, that's the general rule, but that was something that back during the invasion, I know we used to ask them all the time because, again, the WCW guys were the invaders, so I got a pop when I invaded, others got a pop when they invaded, and I remember Jericho saying, it's like, is WCW supposed to be the babyface in this angle? Because that's not what I was told it was, but that's the way it felt booking because we were the invaders. And when they talk about the home team, but if you can come into you come into my yard and beat me up, you're a badass. And that's obviously how Becky came across because she came into Ronda's yard and owned her for the night. It was fantastic. But if they thought it was a heat angle, it was heat up and down the show. And the thing that got under my skin is many of the heat angles on Raw weren't just that the heel got heat, was that the babyface looked dumb. And that's something that as a booker and a worker,
that's like Raw.
It is, but Ember Moon is an example. Like, it was Tamina and Nia out there. And Nia just looked like she might do something, and Ember looked at her and got jumped right at the beginning of the match to get beat up. And then she made a little bit of a comeback and looked over at Nia. Oh, it was on the floor. She made a comeback, and Tamina bumped out, and she got out, and she turned around to look at Nia, who hadn't done anything yet, and she got jumped behind and beat up for the heat. And then on the finish, she makes her comeback. She goes to the top rope. Nia stands there and moves, and she turns and looks at her, and she gets attacked from behind and beat. It's like 3 times in a row. You looked at Nia when she hadn't actually touched you yet, and you got beat up for it. And you lost. and your really cool dive was proven to be completely ineffective and got no reaction. I'm like, we talked about how in that battle royal at Evolution, Ember was, if not the most over babyface, the second most over babyface. And she was just, I neutered or spayed, which is the version done to female animals instead of males. I don't know which one's which, but it's like, she was just killed as a babyface.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Like, but who lays the matches out? Like, who has the babyface get distracted 3 times? 'Cause that's, again, I'm a guy that put together my own matches all the time. And since I broke in as a babyface, when I was a heel working with babyfaces, it's like I always try to take care of them because there's nothing worse than being that babyface that gets made out to look like a doofus. So it's like, if I was cheating or distracting or whatever version of chicanery I was doing to go into my finish, I made sure that the babyface didn't fall for that shit any time but the one time he had to. And to know you're doing a Nia will distract her on the finish, and to use Nia will distract her on the heat spot too. It's like, well, we could have Nia distract her for the start too. It's like, are you kidding me? It's like, throw your babyface a bone, please. And she wasn't the only babyface. Like, I actually made a comment. It's like, don't we shine babyfaces anymore? Almost all the babyfaces get sucker punched or sucker kicked at the start of a match. I don't remember if it was Finn or Elias, but it's like he got jumped at the bell or before the bell. They went to break and come back, and he's in a chin lock in the heat.
My guess is it would be both.
Yeah, it probably was. And I'm like, do we not have confidence that the fans will enjoy the beginning portion of a match? Are we training them to purposefully only care about near falls so we don't even bother doing a shine anymore?
That's already. I mean, if you're training them for that, then to me, like, have a shine and then cut the heat. Because they put the heat during commercial anyway, so, I mean, why do we even bother having heat?
I don't know. There's enough of it on the finishes, I guess.
I mean, for crying out loud, they get the heat during the break half the time. Like, how could you possibly care about match if you don't even know how the heat cut? Well, I mean, what happened to this guy to get cut off? You don't even know. Who cares?
Yeah. And then to that end, too, and it's... I don't know if it's him or whether it's instructed to because they want to protect the heel. But, like, when Finn won, he got a roll-up using technique. And Michael Cole screamed, "He steals one!" And I'm like, how is that theft? And that it reminds me of JR, who obviously is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, play-by-play guy of all time. I remember him saying that Bill Watts, when he trained him, there was certain adjectives and descriptive words you used for heels and baby faces. And they were, again, you use admirable words for baby faces and less admirable words for heels. And it's like, the baby face should never be stealing a victory. It's like he used superior technique and countered to the roll-up for another roll-up and picked up a 100% clean as a sheet win. And for the lead announcer to scream, he stole it. Like, is it just anything that's not a finisher now is a cheap theft? Like, I don't understand. Unless it is, well, we don't want it to feel like a decisive win because we're going to have 14 rematches. But he didn't get much shine, and it's like, okay, he got the win. Can we put it over that he pulled off a win? It's not theft. He didn't kick him in the balls. That's SmackDown's angles. He didn't pull the tights. He didn't get distracted. He just beat him. Can we throw the babyface a bone now and again?
Well, we've also got, what else do we have on that show? Let's see, Idiot Beatdown, heel promo.
Oh my God. Can we retire one time for all and never do it again for at least 5 years? The heel that comes out and sounds remorseful and sad for the evil deed they did, to just swerve us and go, ha ha ha, I'm not upset and sad at all. Like, literally, when Ruby Riott came through the curtain and had a sad expression on her face,
you knew where it was going.
I texted my buddy, oh, we're getting the fake remorseful promo for a swerve. Yay. She hadn't said a word yet, and I was right. It's almost every show. And it's like it doesn't even get heat anymore because you know. And then Natty, tried to jump her from behind 1-on-3. I don't know where her good friend Ronda Rousey was. I don't know where her friends from last week, Sasha and Bayley, were. And Natty got her ass handed to her. And then Sasha and Bayley got tricked by the same heel. They fought each other and got beat up, and then they just got beat up, and they're not even on the team. It's like, wow, we're shorthanded in baby faces. Can we do something with some of them? It's very, very frustrating.
Let's talk about a comment that Dave made that you wanted to talk about regarding
yes.
No better time to be a fan.
Yeah, and great. And before I dump on Dave so people can start going, Lance Storm and Dave Meltzer are feuding, it's like I have a tremendous amount of respect for Dave, especially as a news reporter, journalist. It's like if there's any question, it's like I always look for what Dave had to say because I trust and believe it. But his statement that there's no greater time to be a wrestling fan because there's so many great matches actually annoyed me a little bit. And it'll get on to these star ratings and everything else, and I text you about it all the time. You're my venting post half the time. But there's people that watch wrestling for things other than 87-star matches. It's like, I remember promos, and I remember angles, and I get into the story. And to me, wrestling is art. Wrestling is a suspense thriller. Wrestling isn't a math test you grade. It's, if it was figure skating, which is a comparison I've made many times, there's technical merit and artistic impression. And I'm beginning to think Dave has lost sight of the artistic impression. And he's just grading on technical difficulty. And the fact that there are 3 5-star matches a week might be great if that's the only thing you're interested in, but to me, in a lot of ways, it doesn't make wrestling better if I'm so busy consuming these 5-star matches and grading them like they're math tests and comparing them to the one last week and the one before that. Well, they had one 3 weeks ago that I think might have been better, but this one wasn't as good as the other one. And it's like, can we just enjoy the goddamn match? And that's where the SmackDown before Crown Jewel, the Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles match that everybody raved about, you included, said it was great. Dave went, well, I wouldn't say it's great. It was, it was pretty good. There's just too many good, I saw one at PWG the night before that was a better match, and there was that New Japan match from 3 weeks ago that was better. And it's like, we've been watching Raw and SmackDown for how long? It was the best match SmackDown had delivered in forever. It was fun. The crowd was excited. And on top of that, how many times have we tuned into Raw or SmackDown for them to do the, hey, why wait? Let's do this match right now. And it's a match you really want to see. And the crowd goes nuts. And you're sitting on your couch going, yeah, I'd like to see that. And they go, nah, well, you don't get it now. You have to pay. Watch on Sunday. And they make the people unhappy. Well, SmackDown, they come out and asked if you wanted to see this match. And everyone went, yeah, we want to see this match. And they went, all right, we'll give it to you. And I'm like, sweet. They're not giving me heat tonight. They're giving me what I want. And then those two went out there and had a great match. I don't care how many stars Dave wants to give it. It was a great match. I sat on my couch and I loved it. And it had a clean finish. And it was great. And it ended the show and I was happy. And I don't want you to sit down and, check for grammar and check for spelling and make sure that it is actually, it wasn't really 4 3/4, Bryan. It was only 2.5. And I'm like, can we just enjoy something? Can we not have to grade and compare something all the time? I just want to watch matches and enjoy matches. And I would like more angles that are good, like the Becky Lynch Ronda angle that ended Raw. I want more of that. I want more promos like we got back in the day. And occasionally we still get them. Joe throws a good one out there every once in a while. And it's, again, if you like the current time and you think it's the greatest time to be in the fan, then it is for you. And I think I just get frustrated with Dave, shall we say. Maybe we'll get to do a show together. We can yell at each other. That'll be fun. That I think at times he forgets that it's subjective. And if I liked this match and it was great, that's what it was. And if I think wrestling was better in 2005, then it was for me. And when you do this match was better than that match, it's like, can we not just live in the moment? I'm a Jack Reacher fan. The new Jack Reacher book, Past Tense by Lee Child, is out right now. And I'm reading it. And so many times I'll get someone's like, oh, well, which one's your favorite in the series? I'm like, I don't pick one that's favorite in the series. I like the series. I like the books. Well, was this book as good as the last one? I'm like, I don't care. I'm reading right now and I'm enjoying it. And I don't want people trying to grade our podcast to say that last week's show was better than this week. It's like, if you're enjoying it in the moment, how about we enjoy it in the moment? And I'll let you throw anything in if you want. Before I also want to get to, it's like, there was a time where I thought star ratings were important. And it's like, I don't think it's now.
One thing I want to say, I guess you sort of touched on it, is to say that now is the best time to be a wrestling fan there's ever been. I mean, I largely agree with it, but I will say that when I go back and watch those old NWA shows, granted, the wrestling on Raw and SmackDown is significantly better. I mean, every now and then you'll see like a great match on the NWA show, but in general, it's like a bunch of nothing happening, boring squash matches. And after a year of making fun of fat, ugly jobbers, I mean, you pretty much run out of material. I'd like a little bit better action, okay? But nobody today cuts promos like those guys do. The angles that they shot back then. And it's not even just like the angle, but like they shoot the angle and then J.J. Dillon comes out and he's the greatest, slimiest heel ever to explain everything that happened and why he's actually right for this terrible thing that he did. Why the babyfaces are wrong for being good guys. It's so good. Like, if you're a fan of interviews and angles and logic, this is the worst time to be a wrestling fan. Ever. Like, maybe the dying days of WCW was worse. But I mean, I'm not even sure about that.
Thunder in 2000.
Think about this. As stupid as that pinata on a pole match was, at least Russo claimed it was Hoovie's birthday, and that's why he was there with a pinata. And he came up with the idea to put the pinata on a pole and put a $10,000 check in it, because he was all about ratings and storyline and real life, and he wanted these guys to go out there and kill themselves for a pinata to try pump their ratings. You know what? It makes sense. It's racist and it's stupid, but it makes a hell of a lot more sense than Becky Lynch coming out on SmackDown and hugging Charlotte. So, I'm not even sure that there is a worse time if you're looking for logic in wrestling. And there were some damn good promos in WCW back there in the day. I mean, Sid kind of falling off the wagon here, but when Flair's on, he's awesome. When Sid was on, he was awesome. Luger's funny. Like Scott Steiner, when he's on, cuts these great promos. I mean, you could sure argue if you like high spot wrestling and not even high spot wrestling, like great Omega matches, Okada matches, Tanahashi matches. Tanahashi's not a high spot wrestler. He's an old school. Matches. He's an old school great wrestler. If you love wrestling, professional wrestling, bell to bell in the ring, I don't think there has ever been a better time. But there's more to wrestling than just the action inside the ring.
And the one thing I really miss, and maybe everybody prefers their childhood, and I'd be a teenager, I wouldn't be a child, but the anticipation. Like when the Saturday Night Main Event was a thing in like 86 and 87, it's like we would be chomping at the bit. We actually looked forward to going back to school because in September there was a Saturday Night Main Event. And we'd like be counting down the weeks to that Saturday Night Main Event and then talking about it for weeks afterwards. And when I started getting Clash of Champions, it's like I'd be excited for weeks on end that a new Clash of Champions was coming up. And this is something I was just talking to a buddy of mine about MMA right now. It's like you don't have a chance to speculate on what the next card will be and then get excited about the next card. They're just happening every day. And if you like watching a lot of matches or a lot of fights, it's a great time to be an MMA fan because you can watch a fight every other day. And if you want to see a great wrestling match, there's a lot of promotions and you can watch them every single day. But if you want time to here there's another Saturday main event coming up. Oh man, it's October 3rd. And you talk to your buddies at school and you get excited about it. And then the next week it's like, oh man, we need to get together for that. That's 2 weeks away. And you make a plan on whose house you're going to get at. And you plan on who's bringing food and who's bringing beer and who's doing what. And then you get together on that show and you watch it Saturday night. And then you're talking about it all week at school about how awesome it was. And oh my God, I can't believe that Earthquake did this and the Mega Powers shook hands. And it's like, yeah, we weren't getting to watch 5-star matches every week, but we got to really get into our wrestling. And I'm not saying my way's the best way, but I'm saying I would never state now is the best time to be a wrestling fan. It's like, it's a subjective art, and depending on what you like. And if you like quality wrestling matches and variety, because you can stream anywhere in the world and everything's available on YouTube, then yeah, it's a great wrestling time for you. But I think that's where my issue with Dave is. I think at times he forgets that his opinion isn't the only one.
All right, we got to make sure before we go, we talk about something that I discussed on Observer Live today. Fans in real life versus fans in not real life.
So we just call this the Ed syndrome?
Yeah.
Wow, that was a you.
Yes.
Ed, you touched on
you know what Ed is? Ed is a great guy in real life. He's so annoying online and texting me and emailing me and everything like that. You know what's funny is I know it's kind of weird. Like, I can't help myself. I read stupid shit that people say on the internet, and I still feel the need to correct them. It's like a complete waste of my time because, number one, like, the thing with the internet, and this is for everybody listening to this right now, because you're listening to this and so you're on the internet, all right? Everybody who says something stupid on the internet, there are two options for the reasons that they say this, okay? Option number one is they're being a troll, okay? That's about 50% of the people are being a troll. So
75.
I don't know. I've read my timeline. Anyway, whatever percentage it is that are being a troll, there's really no use trying to correct them. They're trolls, okay?
Dave.
He does it all the time. But the remaining percentage, they're just stupid. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, I read some of these comments and it's like, you're just dumb. Like, you just are dumb. You don't get it. You don't do any research. You live your life listening to what other people say. You don't examine anything for yourself. You don't make any of your own decisions. Whatever you say or read or agree with on the internet is solely done because, for whatever reason, like, you need validation from people. And so you're going to listen to them. You're going to agree with them. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. You're an idiot. And there's no reason to try to convince an idiot about anything. They're an idiot. You're wasting your time. So 100% of the people that say dumb shit on the internet, you're completely wasting your time acknowledging. But for some reason, it's very difficult to not acknowledge it because there's just something about it. Some people say things that are so stupid that you feel like, for the good of the universe, you have to explain the reality of the situation. And to the people that they like you and they are smart people, it's a waste of everybody's time. I try to do it as little as possible, but sometimes I can't help myself.
Yeah, it is a natural instinct. There was a female wrestler that made a stupid comment this week that I corrected very abruptly online because it was just a dumb narrative I wanted to shut down. And since it was actually someone in the business, not just a fan, I shut them down quickly. But yeah, and that's this. And I do want to clarify, because you did on the show mention, it's like, wrestling fans at events and in person are better than I think they've ever been. Like, fans genuinely, when you do meet and greets or you're at shows, it's like they do seem to be really cool and they appreciate the work, and you seldom get troll comments or stupid comments in person. They're happy to be at the show. They're receptive of what you did, and they're very, very grateful. But for some reason, when the anonymity comes into it, I think it's because if you just say something nice, you don't get the attention online, so they troll. And when you're in person to meet somebody, they're actually getting the attention now, and then they can just be themselves, and generally they're nice people. And again, Ed being the prime example of that. I don't think I even follow him online anymore because he's just annoying as hell. But every time I met him, he's like the nicest guy in the world.
That's Ed.
That's Ed. Where Rodney's just nice all the time.
Yes, he is. That's your full comment?
I think so. I don't know what else we can get into, but it's frustrating that people can't be the real life person online. And I think the world would be a better place if you treated anyone you tweeted like you would treat them if they were standing in front of you.
And then one other thing, by the way. I shouldn't have said a full 100% are either trolling or stupid. There is a small percentage that I will, I guess debate is the best word on the internet, because I believe that they're not trying to troll, and actually what they're saying is not dumb. I just feel that they're incorrect in what they're saying.
They're naive.
Not even naive. I'll just give you an example today. So I was on Twitter, and obviously if you're on my Twitter, you saw the video of Cynthia Calvillo looking like she's about to faint as she's getting onto the scale. And there was a thread, and well, when I posted it, somebody said they need to do the weigh-ins on the day of the weigh-in. I've said it many times, there should be cage-side weigh-ins.
Day of the fight.
Matt Farmer, yeah, well, obviously cage-side. Matt Farmer, who I really respect, nice guy, wrestled with him forever. He's the man behind Defy, one of the men behind Defy. He says, that would be absolutely the worst idea for a fighter's health. They would be fighting even more dehydrated, which is extremely dangerous regarding long-term brain injuries. I disagree with him. I don't think he's a troll, and I don't think he's an idiot. And the key is, he might be right.
No, he's not.
But as I noted, we don't know, because this is a theory that has never been tested on a large scale. There has never been a major MMA promotion that had cage-side weigh-ins, and the guys had to weigh in before they stepped in the cage for their fight that night. It's never been done, because everybody has a theory about why it would be bad. Now, on paper, yes. If everybody cuts a massive amount of weight, they weigh in at the scale, and they walk their ass into that cage, it would be a disaster. There would be brain injuries, there would be deaths, it would be terrible. But we don't know if MMA fighters are really so fucking stupid that they would cut 40 pounds and walk into the cage 40 pounds dehydrated.
Well, that woman couldn't have walked into the cage.
She couldn't have walked into the cage.
She wouldn't have made the stairs.
Exactly. Because here's what we do know, all right? These are the facts that we know. We know when the weigh-ins were 24 hours before the fight, people cut a lot of weight, and some of them probably went into the cage dehydrated. Okay? We know that. We know that when they moved the weigh-ins 6 hours earlier, so 36 hours, or whatever it would be, I guess it would be 24, 30 hours, whatever the actual number was. The further away they moved weigh-ins from the fight, the more they cut, and the worse it was for them. So, in theory, my theory is just as good as anybody else's. If you did weigh-ins at the cage, I refuse to believe that these fighters are that fucking dumb. I think everybody would start fighting very, very close to their actual weight. They would cut very, very little weight because they would know that I have to walk into that cage after I weigh in, and I immediately have to be able to go for potentially 5 rounds. They wouldn't cut 40 pounds and get on that scale. Nobody would do that. It just wouldn't happen.
No,
for some reason, everybody thinks it would happen. I don't think it would. But the point is, nobody knows because nobody has ever tried it.
Yeah, because that's it. It's like, I could beat most UFC fighters if I get to fight them as they step on the scale right now. Because so many of the guys are so weak. It's like they're dying. I've been to a weigh-in, and it's like there's guys holding them up, and it's like no one would do that 5 minutes before a fight. And the one guy that didn't would just destroy everybody. So I agree. Cage side weigh-ins would eliminate, because you just couldn't cut weight. There's no way you could fight and function dehydrated like that.
You couldn't. I mean, like, listen, everybody knows the story about the amateur wrestlers that put on the rubber suits, rode their bikes, and 3 of them died in one season. This was back in like 1998, okay? They changed it. They totally overhauled everything. And they started to weigh in like when you got on the mats and everything like that. Did anybody die afterwards? No, because they didn't cut the weight and then get on the mat. Now, I know people are going to say, it's grappling. You're not getting hit in the head. It is different. You're right, it is different. It is different, okay? But are we just going to presume that high school amateur wrestlers and their coaches are so much smarter than grown adult MMA fighters that we're going to have a string of morons going in there and dehydrating and the whole 9 yards and dying? Is that really what we expect from these? Are they really Cro-Magnon? I don't know. Point of this is, it's something that I can disagree with somebody with, and I don't presume that they're a damn idiot. I just have a difference of opinion.
And they haven't thought about it enough.
And we don't know.
No, we do. We're right, Brian.
All right, what do we got for plugs here?
Obviously, Storm Wrestling Academy, where I'm at wrestling school. I've got 2 weeks left with the current group. There's still, I believe, 2 spots for January. So if you're interested, there's still availability. You can email training@stormwrestlingacademy.com and get into that group. But if not January, there's May and September of next year. Again, I'm the guy in the ring with you every day. There's Storm Wrestling Academy students on Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor Wrestling, WWE Television, NXT. Chelsea Green just got signed. I think I'm actually up to 11 now, because there's 2 guys in NXT UK. So there's 11 graduates that have been signed to WWE in some form or another. So a good place to learn. Storm Wrestling Academy, stormwrestling.com for information. You can follow @Storm Wrestling Academy on Instagram for some videos and photos and stuff of training. You can follow me @LanceStorm on Twitter. And also, too, unless Bryan and I find a means by which to do so, I'm flying next Friday because I'm going to WrestleCade in Winston-Salem, North Carolina for WrestleCade. I'm appearing on the Saturday, I think 10 till 3, signing stuff, taking pictures, greeting fans in person, so it'll be a pleasant time. And that's next weekend, so that's about all I've got going.
All right, everybody, that's it. We're going to wrap it up for today. There's a lot of great stuff up on the front page, a lot of great stuff to come. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you again after a while.